All right, to start our class today, I want you to open this image. This image is called car002. It's in the subfolder cars in our images folder. So if I go to File Open and we go to the images folder, again, one of the subfolders in it is called cars, and it's this one here, car002. So once you open the image, basically I'm gonna apply some of the stuff we've learned last week. So I'm gonna zoom in here, and let's say I want to change the color of that lower part of the car. So I'm going to select the polygonal lasso tool, and I'm going to start creating a selection around it. So here's my selection around it. So we've done a lot of that again last week. So just to save some time, I'm going to pause recording, and I'm going to finish the selection. And then when we start recording again, you're going to have the selection already good to go. All right, so here's the selection finished. I basically selected this area and went around the silver bumper, and I got the part of that car down here, and then around the wheel and back up to get that. So if I zoom back out a little bit, here is our selection. We're selecting that lower panel of the car. All right, so the next thing I want to do is I want to change the hue like what we did last week. So I'm going to go to the layers palette. I'm going to unlock the background. That will make it layer 0. I'm going to right click at it and select duplicate layer, and I can call this one left panel. So here's the left panel. And once I have the layer called left panel, I'm going to go to the menu layer, layer mask, and I want to reveal that part that I have selected. So I'm going to click at Reveal Selection. Notice that there is one thing I have not done. I did not go to the channels and save this selection as a mask. So if I deselect both layers, and go to channels, all I have is the red, green, and blue channels. Last week, I asked you to take the selection and save it, but I did not do that now, and I'll explain why we didn't need to do this at this point. So I have this mask. If I turn layer 0 off, here's the end result. This part shows. And again, I'm going to zoom on to show you the details of the part that we have visible. And then as per what we've learned last week, I'm using Command- to zoom, and then I'm going to go now to layer. I don't have any selection. I'm going to go to layer, new adjustment layer, hue and saturation. The name is hue and saturation 1 is fine. I'm going to change the hue, and now it applies all over the image, and I want it to apply just to the layer underneath it. So I'm going to go over the hue and saturation layer, right click at the name of the layer, and I'm going to apply this one here, create clipping mask, and you're going to see the arrow pointing down. And then the last thing is to click once at the mask for the left panel layer and go and add the feather to it. So let's say I'm going to add 2 pixels feather to it. And if I zoom in, here is the changes that we've done. This is without the mask. It will have a sharp edge. Again, it will stand out. It will look fake. If I add the 2 pixels feather, it will soften the edge and it will blend in with what's around it. So none of everything I've done now is actually new. This is basically everything we've done last week. But today we're going to start discussing the following. Well, I made an error in my initial selection, and that error was to include in it this light. So the end result is if I turn the adjustment layer visibility off, if I go here and turn it off, I'm going to find that this light also changed color, and I don't want it to change color. So can I go back now and modify the result that I have here to be able to get this to go back to the original colors? And the answer lies in understanding how the mask work. So what I want to do is I want to switch my view to the mask. And to switch your view to the layer mask, there's a shortcut to do that, which is the following. You're going to hold down the Option key or the Alt key if you're using a PC. You're going to hold down the Option key, and you're going to go here in the layers palette, and you're going to click at that mask. And that will switch your view to see the layer mask. So again, the shortcut, if you're looking at the layer itself, if you click at it to go back to your normal view and you want to view the layer mask, is to hold the Option key and click at that thumbnail view of the layer mask, and that will switch your view to the mask. So let's understand the following. What is the white area in the mask? The white area in the mask is the area that is visible of the layer called left panel. The black area is the area that is not visible, the area that is hidden. So if I go back to click once at the layer itself and turn layer 0 off, this area of the layer called left panel is not visible because the mask in that area is black, while this area is visible because the mask in that area is white. So given that logic, if I wanted the color correction, the change in hue, not to show over this part of the car, then I need that part in the layer mask to be what? That part in the layer mask should be black. If you guess black, that's the correct answer. So we're going to go back and make changes to only that part. So I'm going to go back to my image and I'm going to switch back to the lasso tool here. Just to be sure you understand this, if I option click at the mask, you're going to see the mask. If you click without option at the image, you're going to go back to see the image itself, and I have layer 0 turned off. So with the lasso tool, I'm going to now zoom in on that light and I'm going to create a selection around the light. So what am I selecting exactly? I'm selecting the area that I don't want to edit, the area that should not be included in the color correction, because initially when I selected this part of the car, I should have noticed that this was not supposed to be changing, and I did not. So I have a small error in my initial selection, and we're learning how to go back and correct that. And step number 1 to doing this is to select the area that is the error. Select the area that is the problem, which is this part. Step number 2, you need to go to the mask. So how do I switch my view to the mask? I'm going to go here, click add it while I'm holding the option key down. And then once I'm in that view, I need to fill that area with black. So there's a command to do that. It's under the menu Edit, Fill, and when I open the controls for Edit Fill, the contents that I'm going to use to fill should be black in our case. And if I click OK, we modified the mask of the layer by switching this part of it now to black. So this is the end result after we modified the mask. Now if I go back and look at the layer, you're going to find that this part disappeared, because in the mask, black means the image is transparent, white means the image is visible. So the color correction now is applied to only this section without this part. And if I show the full image back again and zoom out a little bit, and click the shortcut to deselect, which is Command D. So that's that shortcut to deselect, Command D. I will see that I was able to modify the mask after the fact by basically taking that part out of it and not including it in the color correction. Now, given the same logic exactly, what if I wanted the top section of that panel to be the same color? Like what if I realized, well, I don't want just to change the lower part, I also want this part or this part to be included in the color correction. Let's say this part here, I want it to also be green. I want it to be the same color as what I have here. So I want you to try to guess what I need to do. So if I go to the layer mask again, this part in the layer mask should be what? Should be, if I want the color correction to appear, it should be white, if you guessed that correctly. So now I have to select it first with the selection tool, and then I have to go to the mask and I have to edit it and fill it in the mask with white. So I'm gonna pause the movie until I select it, and then we're gonna start again once I have it selected. All right, so here it is. I have the selection made, so I'm just gonna zoom in to show you. I've selected this part of the image, and I want to see if you can guess what I need to do. So I've been using, by the way, Command plus, Command minus, and panning, like all the shortcuts we've learned from last week. I'm using a lot of them to zoom in and zoom out in the image. So can you tell me what do I need to do now to be able to get the green color to appear also in that part of the image? So step number 1, select it, which we did. Step number 2, go to the mask and switch your view to the mask. So here it is, switching my view to the mask. And then step number 3, fill that area with the correct tone, black or white. So I'm going to go to Edit, Fill, and I'm going to fill that area with white this time. So the contents, and this time is going to be white, and I'm going to click OK. So when I go back to the final result, I will see that the green now is appearing in that part. So I'm going to click Command D because I don't need that selection anymore. One thing to mention is feather added to all of them. Yes, feather is added in general to the mask. So whatever area you fill with black or white in the mask, it will automatically have the feather added to it. So here's the new area with the feather. This is without the feather, and this is with the feather. So basically the whole mask have one feather value that applies to everything in that mask. this is what the mask look like at this point. Okay, so there's one last detail I want to show you in relationship to this, and then we're going to discuss that a little bit more. So let's assume that I wanted this small triangle here also to become green. So I'm going to use the lasso tool and I'm going to select it as well. We now tried that a couple times, selecting an area and either filling it with white to make it included in the color correction, or fill it with black to take it away from the color correction. So here is that part, and now it's selected. Now I want to clarify that you don't actually have to switch your view to the mask. You don't have to go on option, click at the mask. You need to target the mask. You need to click at the mask once. That will show you the white border around the mask here. And once you see that white border around the mask, then you can simply go to Edit, Fill, and you fill that area with white. So that will show you the color correction here. It's really important. I'm going to undo that last step because I want to show you something else. It's really important you don't accidentally have this selected like that, because if you do that, you're actually filling the pixels of the image themselves with white. You're going over these red pixels and making them white instead. So it's important that you are highlighting the mask. Be sure you're targeting the mask. You see that white border around the mask before you go to Edit, Fill, and fill that area, in our case, with white. So let's look at a few notes about what we discussed now, and we're going to go and review more as we continue with this idea. So if I discovered an error in my initial selection or layer mask, can I go back and fix it? And the answer is yes. What you need to do is you need to select the area that you want to fix. So you're not going to select the whole thing again. You're going to select just the area you want to fix. And then either switch your view to the mask, and we said you do this by holding the option key and click at the mask, or just target it. And what I mean by target it, the white frame on the mask. So again, I'm going to go back to Photoshop for a moment. It's important you know what I mean by that. So once you create a selection, like if I just create a very simple selection here. So here is a selection that I have. And once I have that selection, I can either option click at the mask to go to see the mask. That's one way. Or I can simply just click once at the mask and I see that white border. Both of them mean I'm editing the mask. Both of them means basically I'm editing the mask at this point. So once you select the part you want to change, you can either switch your view to the mask or target the mask. And then you're going to go to the menu Edit, Fill, and then for the contents, you're going to choose either black to remove the color correction or white to add it. So if I want to click Command D and just select a small area here, and if I don't want that area to be green, I can target the mask and go to Edit, Fill, and in that case, can you guess if I don't want the green to show what it should be filled with? It should be filled with black in that case, and if I click OK, you're going to see that the color correction is gone. I'm going to undo, I'm going to click Command Z, then Command D, because that's not really what I wanted to do. So would any existing feather applied to the layer mask already be added to this new edited area? The answer is yes. It's the same mask, so whatever feather you added to it is going to automatically apply to any new area you fill with black or white. Now there's an important idea I want you to know here, which is always start with a correct selection. Use this technique only to make changes after the fact or to fix errors. So if you knew from the beginning that the goal was to change these two panels or these three panels to green without the light, then your initial selection should have looked something like that. That should have been the initial selection that I would have made. And that would be my starting point to go and add the layer mask and duplicate the layer and create the adjustment layer. So this is what we're learning now, is to not intentionally make errors in your additional selection and then going back and fixing these errors. That's not the point. The point is to allow you after the fact, if your client changed their mind and wanted to change that color again, or you change your mind about the light, you don't like the color, you should be able to go back and make these changes. But it's not something to make errors intentionally. Now, there's one last thing I wanted to mention also here, because I did it and I did not mention what I did when I did it, which is the following. We know the shortcut to switch your view to the mask is to hold the option key and click at the mask. So here's me doing that. There's another shortcut, which is the following. If you hold the command key in a PC, that would be control. If you hold the command key and click at the mask, that reloads the selection of the mask. So if you want to get the selection back from a mask, then you can do that as well. You can, again, if I click Command D, and then I'm going to hold Command key and click, that will reload the selection back from the mask. So that's such a different shortcut that I did earlier when I was trying to show you the selection, but I did not mention which shortcut I was using. So if we go back to our notes here, we can write a couple notes about that as well. All right, so what is the shortcut to switch your view to the mask? It's Option click Add It, and if you're using a PC, that will be Alt click. What is the shortcut to reload the selection from the mask? That will be Command click Add It, so, or Control click. So that basically finishes our first part of the lecture today.